Bell and others have basically proven that if quantum mechanics is correct, then one of two things has to be wrong. Either reality doesn't exist the way we think it does, or locality doesn't exist the way we think it does.
Right.
And again, just recently, over the last couple of years, this team of physicists in Vienna solved that argument and proved that reality doesn't exist the way we think it does. In other words, it doesn't exist until it's observed, which is just really kind of a mind-blowing concept, but it has a very convenient answer in programmed reality. In programmed reality, it's very easy to imagine a scenario where you have to actually observe things for them to exist.
Yes.
And we can delve into that a lot deeper if you'd like to. I'm not sure if you wanted to go into that now or move on in a different direction.
We can, I guess we can hold off on that because there's a lot of questions around that we can speculate more on later on. But I do want to get into the next topic, if you will, of what we're going to discuss here today about basically this idea that the singularity will not occur. I think that will be good to dive into that right away. And I know that you wrote a little bit about this. That Ray Kurzweil, of course, one of the proponents of the singularity, the technological singularity, that this will happen. And then there's J. Ron Lanier, another guy who's talking. And as I understand it, these two guys have a little bit of a not maybe dispute, but they're a little bit different in how they think that this will come about. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. And the singularity, just for kind of set the stage for it, is this idea that trends in technology, due to Moore's law, are increasing at this exponential pace. And if you ever see an exponential plot on a graph, it moves along kind of slowly, and then suddenly it turns vertical. It's like, you used to see predictions of the population explosion, that the planet was going to get overpopulated so quickly that, if you plot the population of the Earth over time, people were predicting that it was just going to go into this sort of vertical direction, and we would have this kind of crazy, very, very fast population. And in fact, it happens in cases where you bring non-indigenous plants or animals into a region. I know back in the 1800s, rabbits were introduced to Australia, and if you plot the population of rabbits, they start off, a couple rabbits, 4 rabbits, 8 rabbits, whatever, and then very quickly sort of asymptotically approach this, very, very fast population growth, but it stopped. And of course it stopped. It has to stop at some point because you can't just, kind of overrun a continent with animals. Those animals need something to feed on as well.
Yes.
So there's going to be a leveling off effect due to a million other, reasons, sunlight, food sources, predators, whatever. You can't have that asymptotic effect. So although a lot of people have predicted these, these exponential rises and things, oftentimes they eventually level out. And, what I'm saying is that I think that's going to happen with the singularity as well. The prediction that Kurzweil has is that our technology is doubling so quickly. Moore's law says that you double transistor density every couple of years, and you double the speed of processors every couple of years, maybe 3 years. And because of that, artificial intelligence will occur very quickly. And once artificial intelligence occurs, then that will assimilate all knowledge on the internet and all knowledge, and then AI will create, other AIs that are smarter than it, and we'll just sort of be left in the dust unless we merge with AI in a way, which we are doing. I mean, we're having computer-enhanced devices in our bodies all the time. They're talking about computer-enhanced vision and computer-enhanced memory and things like this. So this whole sort of brave new world idea of technology just going crazy asymptotically is what's called the singularity. And Kurzweil predicts that to occur in the year roughly 2045, and there are quite a few other people who support his notion. And his arguments are very good. The book is very well written. His book I'm referring to is called The Singularity is Near.
Yeah.
It's well written, it's well thought out. He's a very intelligent guy, but as we've seen, there are intelligent people who disagree with other intelligent people, and they have completely different points of view.
Indeed.
So it doesn't take much to kind of Google singularity, and you'll find all the pros and cons, and you'll find all sorts of physicists and thinkers and futurists who say, hey, it's never going to occur,
Yeah.
and then others who say, of course it's going to occur, and they all have very good arguments. So, that's just a little bit about the singularity. In my view, is that it will not occur for a number of reasons. One is the fact that we'll get information overload. Another has to do with software. Another has to do with just, if programmed reality is what we think it is, programmed reality needs to prevent it from occurring just the way it may have prevented a nuclear catastrophe from occurring or the population explosion from occurring.
Now, tell us about that. Do you mean that the program itself is, it cannot allow it to be, I guess, destroyed then, or overrun by something else, or discovered, or explain that a little bit for us?
Sure. Well, imagine, let's just use an analogy. Let's say that you've created a program like, say, World of Warcraft or EverQuest. These are programs that role-playing games that millions of people play online, and they're extremely popular. They're big revenue generators for Sony and their respective companies. So the programmers create these games, and they put them out there, and they watch and see what the players do.
Mm.
And they find out that sometimes there's some flaws in the game. Maybe, for example, the rules that are put into the game allow people to kill each other easily, or find a way to kill each other or steal from each other, and then it becomes no fun for the newbies in the game, and they don't want to play anymore, and the game sort of dies a natural death.
Right.
Well, those programmers have to fix that. If they're going to want to maintain this game for whatever reasons, in their case it's for revenue generation purposes, they have to fix that. They have to put in new rules. They put in patches to the game to prevent fragging or people from killing each other or stealing each other's property and things like that. Or they make it difficult so that only a few people can do it, and those rogue elements are there in the game to make life, to make the game a little bit more interesting, but they don't overrun the game, if you see what I'm saying.
Yes,
so,
indeed.
So from that analogy, if you could imagine that if we are living in a programmed reality and the programmers who have created our reality are significantly more advanced than we are, they would have to be to create a universe simulation that we're living in, then they're probably advanced enough to put the rules in to prevent things from happening that would basically destroy the game. So take the singularity, for example. The singularity would be sort of a civilization-ending event. Maybe it doesn't end civilization, but it ends humanity as we know it.
Yes.
The only way to survive the singularity would be to merge with machines. So
if not that is part of the program or whatever.
I'm sorry.
If that might not be the part of the program or whatever, right? It could be some kind of, because really, if we talk about it in these terms, we're really talking about it in the terms of experiments, and the programmers are really kind of free to do really what they want to do with us, right?
Right, exactly. And so what could happen if the singularity occurs is that basically the game would have to end. So if the intent of the programmers is to keep this game going or this reality going for some reason, then they can't let that happen. They can't let it end. So if you believe in this model, which I tend to do, then you have to believe that there can't be a civilization-ending event. It's always going to reverse. And if you look in history, you find that really has been the case. Back in the 60s, we were 2 seconds to doomsday. Somebody had created the doomsday clock, and it just seemed like it was inevitable. That the Soviet Union and the United States had their fingers on the button that would just send missiles to each other, and
Nuclear
the
war. Yeah.
The least little thing would cause that to happen.
Yes.
The least, the smallest, crisis or event might cause that to happen. And it just seemed like we were, threshold of destroying the world. So did it seem that way during the Industrial Revolution, according to some people. And it seemed that way in the 70s with the specter of population explosion. Now it seems that way, over this century by global warming.
Yes.
People are talking about the end of civilization because of global warming.
Mm.
And then again, I read other things that may be reversing a little bit as well.
Of course.
So
yeah.
I guess my argument is that the reversal of these civilization-ending trends is going to be inevitable if there is a programmed reality. It has to happen, otherwise the game or the reality has to end. So it doesn't prove that we're in a programmed reality, but it lends a little bit of support to it. It kind of explains why things tend to be the way they do.
That's very interesting. That's really, really interesting. So in a way, things are balancing out themselves in order to keep the program running. I mean, one tends to wonder, though, even, I guess the game must progress as well. I'm thinking about in the terms of technology. I mean, we're still in a situation then where we're kind of allowed to develop things. We're allowed to develop technology and make it go faster and explore in that area, of course. But what would you think? Well, I guess we can go into that idea then of how this is flattening out itself, because what you're saying is that there won't be a divine intervention here, so to speak, where someone comes in and change dramatically, patch the program or whatever, but things will automatically balance themselves out, right? So if we talk about this in terms of technology or the singularity, we're seeing this exponential growth all the time. But so this is something that you will see will slowly die out. Is that correct, or flattening the trend?
Yep, I see it flattening. I see it flattening now. So for an example, the one of Ray Kurzweil's charts that's often used shows how long between different sort of paradigm-shifting events occur. So evolutionary events, when did humans first walk upright? When was Homo sapiens evolved? When did we develop art? When did we develop symbolic thinking, writing, the wheel, printing, industrial revolution? All these, are sort of on a timeline. And he shows this very exponential timeline that kind of implies that we are heading toward a singularity, if you follow the timeline. However, the very recent paradigm-shifting event was considered to be the World Wide Web, and the previous one to that was the creation of the personal computer.
Mm.
The time between those two was 13 years. So if we were really on this exponential track, the next major paradigm-shifting event should have occurred around 2000, 2001. But there wasn't one. I mean, the kinds of things that we're talking about are a computer passing the Turing test, true artificial intelligence, or true creation of artificial life, or maybe, say, perfection of brain-computer interfaces or something like that.
Mm.
And those things are still a few years off. So, again, it's a small number of data points, but if you believe the singularity people, they would, we should have had that event already. But in reality, our next paradigm-shifting event is probably going to be maybe 17 years after the World Wide Web,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the 13 years between PC and World Wide Web. So just by looking at that, things seem to be slowing down a little bit. Another big category of evidence for the slowing down of technology occurs, even clock rates in processors have been stuck at 3 gigahertz for a little bit,
Yeah,
a little while.
that's true.
So there's just one other data point of evidence. But another thing I found interesting was I did a little research on, I was very curious to see how the performance of PCs has really increased over the years when you take into account the operating system and the software that you're running. So I looked at things like how long does it take for a PC to boot up?
Mm.
How long does it take to render a 3D model? How long does it take to run a spreadsheet or something like that? And it turns out